Welcome to the Meteorology edition of the Richardson Gazette. These articles are commentary from the editor of Richardson Gazette, and then the full text of the article is presented. Solar energy and atmosphere levels. The National Center for Atmospheric Research in the United States has for the first time measured the global magnetic field of the sun's corona or outer atmosphere. The sun's core is very hot, but the photosphere isn't nearly as hot, and the corona keeps heating up despite of this. The magnetic field considered here helps us to avoid theories of sun, which, with a strangely cool interior and localized hot geologic events in the area near the surface, such a theory of a cool interior would fly in the face of the heart of the modern geological theory. This group used coronal seismology and magnetoseismology to measure the coronal magnetic field. These techniques are now used on a larger scale rather than a localized scale. The article says the measurement of global coronal magnetic fields was missing in the fields. Measuring the magnetic field of the corona would have a great impact on how we understand our own magnetic field here on Earth. Our magnetic field is not just a clear, clean-cut picture, but a diverse array of fields, more often complex than those depicted in the textbooks. This leads us to the atmospheric levels of Earth and Sun. The magnetosphere is an important layer, often neglected in conversations about the layers of the atmosphere. Were it not for this layer, the whole Earth would be consumed by the sun's particles. And here's the full text for those interested in that. The second article we're looking at, a recent article from the Express spoke of when summer officially starts. The article demonstrates that there is some misunderstanding about seasons and what causes them. The article addresses how the seasons are based on when the Earth's axis tilt, is more pointed toward or away from the sun, rather than the Earth being far away in winter and close in summer. The orbit of Earth around the sun is very consistent. It is one of the measurements to which we have the most significant figures of precision. One important component of knowing that different regions, continental and maritime, will have different weather, even in summer, spring, etc. The continental areas will have more extremes, hot summers, cold winters, and as there is no water around, the maritime areas will be more mild, reflection of a higher specific heat for water than land. This can help clarify confusion about seasons for people living in different areas. Okay, and there's the article for those who care to review. This is found on the website. Article 3, we're talking about how we may have stopped driving during the COVID-19 pandemic. With this reduced traffic, we have seen satellites with differences in the air. Early on, increased sulfur dioxide levels in China indicated increased cremation of diseased corpses as an infection control measure. The medical news today speaks of increased ozone O3 levels in China, which perhaps are related to the SO2 levels I heard of earlier, but I don't know. The MNT article suggests that complex reactions between nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds are responsible for its production. The MNT article also talks about decreased nitrogen dioxide as a result of lockdown measures. The MNT article shows how states and countries with more restrictions correlated with more restrictions than the NO2. Iran has lots of corona, but low restrictions perhaps, says the MNT, not due to enforcing restrictions. The ozone increase has scientists thinking that the NO2 reductions aren't enough to fix our ozone-related issues. Interestingly, our cleaning efforts may be harmful. The MNT says a variety of household products can lead to these issues. And here's the article for those who care to review. The fourth article, a probe is going to fly closer to the sun than Mercury, which is the closest we've ever been. The article says it is a mission to understand what drives our star's dynamic behavior. The sun is the single most important factor for weather. We know more about the sun. This will lead more to knowledge about the weather. Many scientists confirm their knowledge about the sun is still far from complete. Sending a probe closer was a great example of weather instrument at work. The gadgets on the probe will take many instruments. This will not tell us what it may be exactly like today locally, but they will help in the long-term, big picture understanding of that nature of our star. I showed this video to my students. They were all very excited about the developments of the mission. We hope that this probe isn't melted or hit by a solar flare. And a full article to review there. The fifth article, investigation says NOAA leadership violated integrity policies during Trump's Hurricane Dorian map scandal. In this article, the NOAA gives a weather briefing contrary to that of the local National Weather Service office. The map that the president used had marker drawing around Alabama, but officials said Alabama would actually not be affected by Hurricane Dorian. It seems strange that the marker around Alabama was added instead of sticking it on the original report. In a republic, we elect people who know more detailed information, whom we trust to make decisions for us. It seems increasingly difficult to make public decisions with conflicting views. It is good that we have a free press where people are free to proclaim that the president has what he said is incorrect. North Korea probably wouldn't allow that, from what I know about their government, including national television, etc. Several of those involved argued back and forth about whether the scientific integrity was violated or not. I think this article illustrates how misinformation can lead to public panic. What if those in Alabama were evacuated without needing to? Or, on the contrary, what if they needed to but didn't? In the article. The sixth article we're going to discuss is of baseball-sized hailstones coming down in a recent storm in South Dakota. This is not an isolated case. Similar cases happen regularly, though not to the magnitude as this as often. While this hailstorm wasn't extremely severe, and there have been many worse hailstorms, looking at these events in this type of situation can help us understand how a more dramatic storm would be harmful. One article explains how we get hail in the first place. Hail is formed in the strong thunderstorm with intense updraft, a lot of water droplets, and great vertical extent. For the hail to form, the temperature of the cloud must be maintained below a freezing point. Hail starts as a water droplet, and temperature drops below the freezing point. The droplets become cool and freeze on contact with the condensate of the nuclei. Hail can be very large as wind speeds increasingly high. While we don't usually refer to the Bible in scientific discussions, it does speak of how hailstones the size of a talent forthcoming. One can only imagine the damage to crops, homes, roads, vehicles, if it were essentially raining bowling balls out of the sky. While this is not unreasonable, as large hailstones have been recently witnessed in several severe storms. There is the article. Next, high and low atmospheric pressure. The more molecules that exist in a location, the greater the air pressure is. Sea level gradually has a greater air pressure than those at the top of the mountain. This article states that high-altitude human populations require special attention and international supply of ventilators. With the coronavirus, we consider where to send these ventilators, and we should take this factor into account. Next, here's the article. And next we'll be talking about frontal boundaries. A cold front this weekend will cool things off. This has been a very hot summer. These cool fronts will bring thunderstorms. Storms can be in warm areas. When I lived in Georgia, it seemed that there wasn't even rain when the skies were clear. People needed to plan travel based on severe storms. Even traffic can derail plans with moderately severe weather. Tropical storm Faye is a result of this cold front in the southeast. Rain in certain places and not in others can result in neighboring areas having quite different weather temperatures. In the article. Next, we're going to talk about weather versus climate. Weather is short-term in meteorology in a given area. Climate is long-term climatology in a given area. The article talks about weather and climate and how they impact COVID-19 virus. I've heard that a virus cannot survive in temperatures over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, but we know there are places like southern Utah which have many cases of the virus despite temperatures being in the triple digits. This might be due to people spending lots of time in indoor, air-conditioned rooms. It wasn't cowboys who settled the desert, it was air conditioning. People need to be spending more time, not less, in the outdoors to combat the virus. People should crank up their thermostats too, but probably not likely. The article points out differences, but also similarities of weather and climate. People say, this climate change, global warming is freezing, referring to the day's weather rather than the general climate changes, emphasis on the word climate, in the region compared to the historic temperatures overall. The article points out that 2020 has been the planet's second hottest year, recorded through June. It is not the temperature itself in focus, it's the steady chain of days. Here's an article with more information that we've been speaking of, that you can review in the report online. 10th article we're going to look at. Recently, large flood in China has everyone worried. Will this shut the food supply chain, which we so heavily rely on in the United States? Many think it will. What of this interest in the question as to whether this has to do with climate change? While dam breaking is a result of human error, there may still be climate change-related factors to be aware of. The article reports heavy storms over the Yangtze River Basin are the result of Western Pacific subtropical high, a pressure system that every summer carries warm air from the south of the north. The system is abnormally strong this year, said Lian Yu, climate and energy campaigner for Greenpeace Eastern Asia. This is not clear if it's caused by climate change. We must be skeptical of any adverse weather as a possible link to man-made climate change. When we alter the atmosphere, we also alter pressure systems, which mean we alter storm seasons and regular levels of storm activity. It would be foolish to rule out the possibility of climate change being related to these regular weather circumstances. Governments decide how to deal with these things and must not rule out all the possibilities. And here is an article that we've been discussing. Last but not least, Yale News reported recently about how carbon cycle insight gives us insights into ancient history. The Sharon carbon excursion is a large disturbance of the carbon cycle of regular cycle of carbon shows regular history without catastrophic events or other disturbances, including major ice ages. When there is an ice age, there are less trees, which greatly disturbs the carbon cycle. When the carbon cycle is disturbed, we can infer that mass extinctions may have taken place at those times. This being the beginning and end dates of cycle irregularity give the following insight. This timing suggests that Sherm exertion was not responsible for global mass extinction that almost stopped the evolution of animal life during the Aridiacaryan period, which occurred 635 to 541 million years ago. And that article is shared as well. Thank you for joining me at the Richardson Gazette Meteorology edition.